Hey guys, I'm the MMA Jew, and I'm going to be giving you weekly UFC fight card breakdowns and picks. I just want to give a quick little intro because this is my first ever YouTube post, or post on anything for that matter, for the MMA Jew. Bear with me, I know you guys want to get to the picks. You guys, no one's watching this yet. Not yet. Yeah, I know you want to get to the picks, but I'll be quick. So my name's Cole. I've been watching UFC since I was a little kid. Trained jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai in my teens and stopped for a while due to a shoulder injury, but I'm back to jiu-jitsu, which is awesome. And yeah, it got me more and more into the sport. I started betting in the last few years, and the last year in particular, it's gone really well. I'm up 33K, and my units are $50 only, so that just gives you an idea of the percentage return. And yeah, I wanted to share my picks with you guys. You can follow me here, as you know, because you're watching at the_MMA_Jew on YouTube, and then on all other platforms. If you want my actual bet slips, you can follow me on X, Instagram, or TikTok at the MMA Jew, no underscores. So let's get to the picks. First up, we have Clayton Carpenter versus Jose Ochoa, the flyweight bout to open the card. So Clayton Carpenter's plus 150, and he's a grappler in the matchup, and Jose Ochoa, the striker, at minus 180. They both faced a grappler in their last matchup. Clayton Carpenter had Tagir Ulanbekov, one of the Khabib Nurmagomedov school grappling, Dagestan, whatever, one of those, and Tagir won. It was a good fight, but Tagir won fair and square, though Clayton did get a couple takedowns of his own and held control for a little bit, landed some shots, but I think that fight showed the difference in the level of grappling in the weight class. And I do think that if you look at Jose Ochoa's last fight against another grappler in the weight class, Asiel Almabayev is the type of grappler that spams takedowns because he knows he'll eventually get them. And he did against Jose Ochoa. But Jose Ochoa still showed great grappling or takedown defense. And when it was on the feet, Jose Ochoa landed the bigger shots. And I think in this fight with Clayton Carpenter, I think he's going to be able to stop Clayton's takedowns. And Clayton doesn't normally spam boom, 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 one after another. He goes for one, maybe two in one go, and then backs away and continues striking. And I think in this fight, though Clayton also has a decent background in striking for boxing, Jose Ochoa will be on the outside. He's longer. He'll land those straights. And I think if Clayton wants to land, it'll be more so in the pocket or an overhand going for the takedown. And I think Ochoa is better when in a dogfight, and I think that's what this will be. I think Ochoa will defend the takedowns, land the bigger shots, maybe even get a knockout. So Ochoa minus 180. Next fight of the night, we have Baisangur Susurkaev versus Djorden Santos. Baisangur is a minus 650 favorite, and for a reason. He trains with Khamzat Chimaev. He's undefeated 11-0, and he is very well-rounded. He can grapple, he can strike, and yeah, he's got finishing ability in both departments. So though Djorden Santos has the heavier hands for sure, I think Baisangur is a technical enough striker to stay away from that big shot. And though Baisangur might have a weaker punch, he can finish the fight with his strikes in other ways, elbows, knees, and kicks to the body even. So, and when he gets in trouble, he can still grapple. So I think Baisangur takes this fight, and he's a big favorite for a reason. Then we have up next the featherweight bout, Pat Sabatini versus William Gomis. William Gomis is a great fighter. He's technically sound. He's very fast. He's got great footwork. But he typically fights on the outside. And in the last few fights against Hyder Emil, Joanderson Brito, I'm forgetting another, but he has been taken down. And those other fighters, like Joanderson Brito, for example, has been dominated in the grappling department by Pat Sabatini. So for that reason, I do think that Pat Sabatini, based on how he's looked in his last fights as well, against Chepi Mariscal in his most recent one, he completely dominated Chepi Mariscal. He's a great fighter. I do think Pat is going to be able to get the takedowns here and potentially finish the fight with submission. But even if he doesn't, I think every round he'll be able to get one takedown. And when he does, I think he'll hold Gomis on the ground. So up next, after that, we have Roman Kopylov versus Marco Tulio. I do think Roman Kopylov is a great fighter. Before his fight against Paulo Costa, I was very high on him. I had him against Paulo, but Paulo showed that if you push, if you're a good, well-rounded fighter who can take a punch and who can put it on and move forward and has good cardio, that you can beat Roman Kopylov. And I wasn't sure. I was saying, oh, maybe he was just off. But then he fought Robocop in his next fight, and Robocop beat him in the same exact way. And honestly, Marco Tulio is a more effective fighter in that regard. Like, he puts the pressure on, he throws at a higher clip, and I think this is the perfect matchup for him against Roman Kopylov. I wouldn't be surprised if Roman lands a third-round KO kick or something like that, because he is great, but I'm taking Marco Tulio here at -200. And I will note, Marco got finished in his last fight against Christian Leroy Duncan, so there's always that, but I still think, I'm just double-checking that that's actually what happened, so I don't give you misinformation. Yeah, he got TKO'd in his last fight, so I didn't lie to you. All right, up next, we have Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. So Jim Miller is old as hell. Jim is a very crafty fighter, but it was more so in his younger years. Like, now he's just withering away, and he's not looking terrible. I just think this is an awful matchup for him, because typically when he wins, he catches someone in a submission or he makes it a dogfight, a technical dogfight. But I just think Jared Gordon is a great technical dogfighter. Better, he's younger, he hits harder, he's going to be able to defend the takedowns. I just think I'm going with Jared Gordon at -310. Easy, lightweight, literally. Up next, another lightweight fight. We have Grant Dawson versus Mateusz Rebecki. However, this is not an easy fight to pick. I am going with Grant Dawson at -155, but the thing is with this matchup is that Mateusz Rebecki knocks people out. Or not everyone, but he can. And Grant Dawson also gets knocked out, so that is scary. However, in this fight, Grant Dawson's the bigger person, he has the longer reach, and they train in the same camp. And I think coming off of Grant Dawson's last knockout loss, I would hope there's some insider information that would lend reasons to why Grant would take this fight. So I think Grant's going to be able to get the takedowns, and I think Grant Dawson wins. Of course, I'm scared because Rebecki can knock him out at any moment, but Rebecki, though he is crafty and has good grappling, he has been taken down in his last few fights, maybe in every UFC fight so far. Don't quote me on that. So, yeah, for that reason, I'm scared, but I'm still going with Grant Dawson. Then up next, we have Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. Yaroslav Amosov is a former champion in PFL or Bellator, whatever. I don't know at the time. Forget. Because they're merged now, as you know. Joel Alvarez, he was a lightweight initially, which is crazy because he's like 6'3", and he looked really good, and he's moved up and has also looked good. He has incredible submissions, and he also has power in his hands, and he's not afraid to throw knees because he's got the range, he's got the height, and the dexterity. However, I think Amosov is too smart of a fighter for him, and I think it's a decent matchup because Alvarez has been taken down, and although he has a submission threat, I think that Amosov is a good enough grappler to get him down and stay away from those submissions. Yes, Alvarez has the power threat for sure on the feet, but Amosov has survived against others with heavy power, so I think he will manage to get through this fight and get the win at -170 out of Ukraine. Then up next, we have the middleweight bout, Ateba Gautier versus Ozzy Diaz. Ozzy Diaz, he's not terrible, but he's not great, and Ateba Gautier is an absolute monster. If you can see a photo of him, which you can right here. Come on. He's -1,000, and I think that's fair. I think he runs through Ozzy, gets a knockout, and that's that. Good middleweight prospect climbing up. Then up next, we have the first fight on the main card, Bobby Green versus Jeremy Stephens. I'm not calling him King. Sorry, Bobby. Sorry. I'm taking King Green -310. He is a weirdo, right? He changed his name. Said I wouldn't say it, but I did. And he honestly isn't like an incredible fighter, but I think he's good enough to beat Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens shouldn't be in the UFC. He's not UFC level. He only survived in the UFC back in the day because at that time, if you were okay around, with your wrestling and you had heavy hands, you could make a living in the UFC. You could do well. Nowadays, that's not enough. You need to be good. And I think Bobby is good in more areas than Stevens, and I think Bobby gets the win. Minus 310. He'll probably mix in the takedowns, fight from the outside. Jeremy Stevens will try to make it a dogfight and try to land the big shots, but Bobby won't be there. Next up, we have the welterweight fight. Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley has fought in middleweight, so he's used to bigger guys with strength. He did lose his last fight against Kamaru Usman. It was a 5-round fight, and grappling was the big difference maker. But Kamaru did use striking to get there, and Kamaru's striking is underrated. It's not incredible, but it's good, and I think it was needed to get to those takedowns. Brady doesn't have that same striking ability, and though Brady apparently does have incredible grip strength, that will be a problem, and for most, I think that Buckley came out of his last fight with Kamaru, knew that he had some holes to close or fix or whatever, and he did, or he seems to have at least been trying, and at the perfect place in the training camp of the last person that beat him, Kamaru. And I think that he's taking it very seriously, and I think that he is a much better striker, has great footwork, and can keep it on the outside and still put pressure on at points, and I think he can defend the takedowns, and I think that's why he wins. Though I am terrified, and I think this is one of my least confidence picks, so take it with a grain of salt, but I'm going with Joaquin Buckley, plus 140. And guess what? The next matchup, a heavyweight bout, I am also going with the underdog, Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Listen, Volkov's the better fighter. Like, he is. He's a more skilled fighter. He's got more experience. And you know what? If fighters couldn't get knocked out, I'd go with Volkov here. But Waldo has just looked too dangerous. Yes, Volkov, in my opinion, won both fights against Cyril Gane. I think he's a great striker. I think he's got great takedown defense and takedowns himself, though he did get dominated on the ground by Jailton Almeida. He still somehow won on the cards, which I kind of agree with, but like based on precedents of other fights that have gone similarly, he would not have won in the past. But hey, maybe tides have turned and it's going to be like that from here on out, which is great. But Waldo Cortes-Acosta, you look at his last 3 fights against Ante Delija, Shamil Gaziev, and Derek Lewis, he knocked them all out, and I think he knocks out Volkov here as well. There is something to say about both of their last fights against Sergey Pavlovich. However, I think when Waldo fought Sergey had kind of recovered from his losses and kind of like got back into it, whereas when Volkov fought Sergey, he had just come off of his KO loss to, I'm forgetting, but Tom Aspinall. So I think he was scared in that fight. I think it was different. I think if he was the usual Sergey Pavlovich with the pressure that he normally brings, that Sergey would have won, and I think Waldo does that here, and I think Waldo gets the KO. Risky pick, but that's 2 underdogs in a row on the main card, and you might think I'm dumb, but be prepared to think I'm even dumber, because I am going with Joshua Van at plus 140 against Tatsuro Taira. Listen, Tatsuro Taira, again, I think he's the better fighter. I just think that the way that this fight is going to go is going to be in Joshua Van's favor, and that's because Joshua Van, he has great takedown defense. He throws at a very high volume. He puts the pressure on, and he doesn't run out of cardio. But I think if Taira were to keep it clean and punch his way into takedowns, he would keep the control, because he's not just good at getting takedowns. He's got incredible jiu-jitsu and is just really good at keeping people on the mat. And what's even scarier is that he can get takedowns against the cage without even having to like take you down, really. He can just jump on your back. So that's scary. The reason why I have Joshua Van is because of how I think he's going to go into this fight. And I think he's going to go into this fight the same way he went into his last fight against Pantoja and got that fluke win. I don't think another fluke win is going to happen, but I think that was a smart game plan. You enter that fight like a wild man, which works in Joshua's favor 10 out of 10 times because of his style. That throws the opponent off, and it takes them off of their game plan. And if you do that right at the beginning of the fight, it's hard to recover if you can keep the pace. And Joshua Van can keep the pace. So I think Joshua Van is going to do exactly that. Tatsuro Taira won't be able to execute the way in which he should because of the pressure of Van. And I think Van gets the win. early on because of it. If not, I think he can continue the pressure long enough for Tatsuro Taira to tire a little to make his takedown threat and power less dangerous. So for that reason, I'm going Josh Van. Now, last but not least, we have the main event, Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. Listen, Sean Strickland, Sean. He's nuts. He's crazy, but I don't know why, but I love him and I want him to win, and I don't think he will. I think Khamzat Chimaev gets the win, minus 550. People say because Sean beat Anthony Hernandez, the next best grappling threat in the weight class, that he has a good chance against Khamzat. The thing is with Anthony is that Anthony uses his cardio to win those fights with his wrestling, if that makes sense. He spams those takedowns until he gets it. Khamzat doesn't need to do that as much. We do see him spam that like first one, right? But once he gets it, he stays there for the round, if not finishes the fight, except for like a few fighters. But Khamzat has had issues with his health in the past and his cardio in the past. This is the longest period, I think, in the last 6 years that Khamzat has gone without a health issue, and on top of it is fighting at a weight class much healthier for him, and on top of that has shown an insane improvement between his last two fights in his cardio, because he's been training with people, I forget their name or the individual's name, who's known for improving fighters' cardio, and it worked. It showed in his last fight against DDP, who's known for cardio in his own right. He got more than 2 takedowns in the last round, if I'm not mistaken, and controlled DDP for more than 2.5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And then that's all without considering that Khamzat's striking has continued to improve. And if you saw recent videos online circulating, he basically dropped Khalil Roundtree, who also says that Khamzat would destroy light heavyweight if he went up. Now, I know everyone would say that because anyone who trains with him gets treated the same way, and that's for a reason, because Khamzat's insane. So I think Khamzat wins here. I think they've trained in the past together, and I think that it's like widely known that Khamzat would get the better of Sean in the training. But yeah, sure, Sean since then has worked on it a lot and made it a bigger part of his training camp. But still, I don't think he can stop Khamzat's takedowns. So sadly, I'm going with Khamzat to win, minus 550. That's the entire card. That's my first fight card breakdown. Please subscribe and like, because this is my first video and I need it. Thank you. Shalom.